I grabbed that medication. Please forgive me because you're not supposed to do this. I put it down the toilet. I called my oncologist and said, we've got to find something else. I can't take this to increase my survival rate and not be the person who I am. One of the last regions of the brain to be touched by Alzheimer's or dementia it's this area in the front of your brain where music, memory, motion come together. We were able to reduce agitation and depression up to 54%. When someone dies in our family, an entire library burns to the ground, and you don't get those pages back.
I met today's guest, Debi Finn, years ago when we were both involved with the Academy of Country Music Awards and Festival. It felt a little bit like summer camp for adults. Long days, big energy, lots of laughter. She stood out to me because of her warmth. She connects with people instantly, not just the important people, all people. What I didn't know then was how much life would ask of her in the years that followed. Debi works in healthcare, helping bring therapeutic music into hospitals and memory care communities. But her story stretches far beyond that. She's been a single mom, a half Ironman athlete, a cancer patient, an investigative genealogist, and an artist who helps people preserve memory through creation. She quite literally wears her resilience, a phoenix tattoo stitched into a patchwork of her life on her arm. At the center of all of this is one quiet strength: empathy. Debi's story is about evolution, about rising more than once, about choosing to fly even when life changes your script. Welcome, Debi, to Strong Like a Girl. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, my friend. Thank
Yeah,
you for
it's so
that
nice to see
intro.
you.
I feel like I'm done. There's nothing for me to talk about.
Well, we're going to talk about all of that. Yeah. Where are you today? Where are you calling in from?
When we first met, I was in, I think, Austin or maybe Houston, and then Austin, and then I
Yep.
moved to Bozeman, Montana, and now I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so you moved to Nashville because your husband got a job there?
Yeah, my husband is a nurse practitioner on the liver transplant team at Vanderbilt.
Well, all right. Nashville. I've never been to Nashville, but it's on my list of places I would like to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
you have a place to
So
stay. We have a spare
for
bedroom.
fantastic. I look forward to that. I'm hoping to do some more traveling here in the next couple of years. So get my
Good.
wings back. Yeah. Kind of been staying
Good.
home for 10 years.
Good.
So when we met at the Academy of Country Music Awards, through our good friend Eric Long,
Oh.
you just seem to connect with people like so easily. Anybody and everybody, like people serving you, people walking past you, like other volunteers and stuff. And like, where does that come from for you?
It's interesting. It's funny because when I was a little girl, I was super quiet. In fact, I was so quiet. My parents were literally thinking that I was broken, as my dad says. And really, what it was is I just observed people, and little did I know. I mean, I was 6, but what I was doing is I was just kind of just observing human behavior, I think. And
Yeah.
then, years ago, I took one of those, like, assessments of, like, what are your superpowers or your skill set and kind of all that at your core, and when I took it, empathy was my number 1. And that was not an originally, that was something I was not a fan of. In fact, the coach that had given me the assessment, I just begged her, literally begged her to let me take the assessment again because I thought that empathy was honestly something weak, and it wasn't until
Huh.
she sat with me and talked about what empathy really was, and, I mean, by the end of our dinner, I was, like, going on Amazon trying to find, are there capes that have empathy on them? Because I felt like this is truly my superpower. So answering your question, I think that's it, is that it doesn't titles are really irrelevant to me because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, we're all fighting a battle. It doesn't matter what our title is. We're all trying to figure this life out, whether or not we're working together for the Academy of Country Music, or we're standing at a bus stop, or we're in line at the bank. I mean, we all have stories. We're all insecure. We're all worried about all of those things. And so for me, that's kind of been my guiding light.
So
That's
how old were you when you did the strength finder and you found out that empathy was your strength?
oh, it was before I met my husband. I think Orion, that's my son, I think he was around 10 and he's about to turn 20. So yeah, 10 years ago, I guess.
So you had already started your career and done those things and you were
Yeah.
already yeah.
Yeah.
And so you didn't know you had empathy? Really?
Mm-mm.
Like, it
Had no
seems
idea.
very obvious to me.
Oh, it wasn't to me. And then when she said it, I thought, "Oh my gosh, like I'm a sap. Like that's yeah, like I've got to change this." And then that's the great part. Thank you, Kim. Of her coaching was that to sit with me and really explain what empathy was. And then when she started, because I've known Kim for years, and when she was giving me examples of us being at places or just doing things in general, she's like, empathy is in every morsel of your being.
Mm.
Yeah, little
Yeah.
did I know.
And you can know that about yourself now and then look back, and can you see how that's played a role in your career and the things you gravitated to, like the roles you gravitated to? Like, tell us a little bit about what you do for a job.
Oh yeah, completely. I can see it. It's like almost odd that that headlight was never able to just to tell me what that was. Like I said, titles are kind of always been irrelevant for me. The jobs I've gone after or what I've just that gravitational pull. I mean, I ended up in healthcare. I mean, you can't get more
Yeah.
caregiver than that. But really what started was years ago. I was in a sales position, and my job was kind of in those retail spaces and hotels and gyms, and it was all about providing music for like my clients were trying to create an experience, but they were using the power of music. And really, I knew what the power of music was on human behavior. And I was
Mm.
introduced to Coro, and we still laugh about it to this day. I've been now with Coro for almost 15 years. And after my interview, I said, "It's up to you to pay me, but I'm showing up at your front door tomorrow." And luckily they paid me. But and so I spent my first 5 years at Coro, in memory care. So I got the opportunity to not just sit with people with Alzheimer's, but I got to sit with their caregivers. I got to sit with their spouses, family members. And really, when it comes to music, one of the last regions of the brain to be touched by Alzheimer's or dementia is what science calls the medial prefrontal cortex, but what I call the sweet spot. And it's this area in the front of your brain, but it's where music, memory, and emotion all come together. So when you
Mm.
see movies like The Notebook, and there's a scene in there
Mhm.
where they're playing music and she finally recognizes her husband. Those really exist. And it's because music opens these windows. I mean, just like we have comfort food, we have our favorite pajamas, we have all of that. Well, we also have
Yeah.
comfort music. And science has proven it's
Yeah.
music that we listen to between the ages of 12 and 22. And there's a lot of theories
Huh.
around it. So when you think about like Spotify during the pandemic, Spotify did a survey and they really identified that there were very few people engaging new content. Everyone was going back to music from the
Mm.
past, and they realized because our anxiety levels were so high. I mean, we already knew it. I mean, that's what happened at Coro. I mean, we see that all the time. And I mean, it's fascinating for all of us that music does. It influences our hormones. I mean, it can reduce cortisol. I mean, we are our best music therapist, honestly. You think about music you listen to now. When you're in the car and you're going on a road trip with the girls, there's different types of music that you listen to versus music that you might listen to when you're vacuuming your house or when you have a broken heart.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing is you are engaging these areas of your brain to bring comfort, to increase energy, to reduce cortisol, to feed into that reward system. And so for me, being able to bring the power of music into healthcare as a tool, and it's reducing pharmaceuticals. I mean, that's the reason why our service is called Music First, because we just simply say use music first before going in the med cart. And then our programs were run through a clinical trial, and it was structured in memory care. And when it came back, it was run by UC Davis Music, bless you, UC Davis Music in the Brain, and we were able to reduce agitation and depression up to 54%. So you think
Really?
about that. Yeah. So you think about the power of music being able to do that, and then it
Yeah.
goes right into that first philosophy of care, is what we call it, is that you're not going to the med cart. You're giving someone something that we naturally have loved most all of our lives.
So imagine if
So yeah.
doctors, like, started to prescribe playlists
Yeah.
instead of medication, right?
Yeah, totally. In fact, one of our things now is it's music prescription, and that's exactly it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, look how smart you are, my friend.
Well, I know, and it's a Friday. Who knew that?
Yeah, exactly.
So how like, obviously that's been a bit of a calling for you is working in the healthcare industry and associating things you love like music with, people, different professionals and I think that it's funny to me how we align with our calling even after we take some tangents like, to the left, to the right, and all those different forks in the road. But I think in general, if when you start to pay attention to your purpose, you do end up aligning with it in one way or another, and it might not look like you thought it was gonna look. But how have you seen the healthcare industry change and then the workers within the industry?
Yeah, it's been interesting the last 15 years. I mean, you're still gonna have caregiver burnout that still exists. You're still gonna have these elements, but really when you go into, like, different, everything from talking to some of our partners over the years to going to conferences, there has been a huge shift of the words engagement. And it used to be
Mm.
back in the day that especially like activities directors or long-term care communities, they were always showcasing like, here's our activities calendar. Like, we're going to keep your loved one engaged and all of this. And over the years, they've realized that it is not. It goes back to it's not about the quantity; it's about the quality of care. And now they're really looking at creating things that are meaningful, things that are person-centered, and really trying to focus on reducing that burnout from not just the staff, but also family members. And then still going back to reducing that need of the med cart as religiously. And that's the reason why I mean, when I do trainings, like, that's part of my job. I mean, I have a licensing music licensing side of my job, which uses one part of my brain, and then I have training, and I get the opportunity to train everything from a CEO down to a brand new CNA when they bring people together, and in fact, I've even had residents that have come on trainings that I've gotten to meet and talk about things.
What's CNA?
Oh, what is that? Certified nursing assistant? So at a
Oh, okay.
long-term care community, you have different levels, everything from like a CNA to I think an LVN, then to an RN. I mean, that kind of like level of care and support at the
Yeah.
community. Yeah.
And when you train them, what do you train them on?
On how to just this, I mean, kind of this. I teach them about what the power of music is. I talk about the science behind it. I talk about how our programs are therapeutic programs and not playlists because we break down every single song to what I refer to as its DNA. So we know its layer of progression, we know its texture, we know its instrumentation, we know its lyrics. Because just like we were talking about listening to music when you have a broken heart. Well, when you're in long term care, even memory care, and you're playing, let's just say YouTube and a super sad song country song, I'm sorry for my country fans out there, but there's
Oh.
a lot of loss, and so if you're working with a resident who has lost her husband, and now you're playing music that's talking about grief and talking about that loss, you don't realize even seeing the words, even if you don't believe you're cognitively aware, you are. And so for us, it's like we build our programs to support outcomes. So if like that person is under my care, I know that she loves country music, but I also know what she's going through. And let's just say I'm her physical therapist. So she's had an injury and I need to help motivate her. She probably will never love physical therapy, but I can put her in, I can reduce that cortisol. I can increase her happy hormones by just playing music that she's connected to. And our programs kind of start, like in this case, on a slope where I'm meeting her where she is, but every single song is increasing her heart rate, her oxygen level, her hormones, reducing cortisol. And it's all using music that she already loves. But I'm also paying attention to making sure lyrics, all the way, depending on, let's just say she had Parkinson's or something. And
Right.
so I know that playing a lot of instrumentation that has a lot of brass, that can be a challenge. So it's things like that. It's really looking at music as a therapeutic tool.
Yeah, when I think about music, in my life, like, I don't necessarily listen to music every single day or stuff like that, but, when I'm in a crisis period or, having something very large to deal with, I like, very loud music, like, as loud as you can get it in my car or whatever. I don't necessarily sing to it, but as loud as you can
Yeah.
get it. Like, it's
Yeah.
max volume, and if it's heavy metal, even better. And that's kind of, a coping thing for me. Like, at other times, I'm not interested in that, right? But it's, yeah, it's interesting that I didn't yeah, my dad had gotten injured a few years ago, and, um I just remember driving to Winnipeg, and I, like, just it was on max volume, and I drove 2.5 hours straight and just, like yeah. And so I don't know what that is that it does for me if it calms and quiets something else or overrides something, right? But
I'm curious, did you listen to was that part of music that you listened to between 12 and 22?
heavy metal? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's your
Yep.
comfort music. You're taking the most comfortable pair of socks and pajamas and blanket, and you're covering yourself in that, but you're covering yourself in heavy
Yeah.
metal. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's what it's doing to your brain. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
You're digging into your reward system is what you're doing.
My new, ringtone is actually Back in Black by AC/DC, so every time somebody phones me, I'm just like, "Great." It's funny.
See,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, yeah, it was funny. Years ago, when I was at, uh, the commercial company that I was with before Coro, I was working on this really big presentation, and I was presenting to, actually, I was presenting to a room full of, funeral home directors because
Oh.
we were talking about the power of music within a funeral home.
Oh, great.
And I wanted to create a slide that was about removing music from an entire day and how difficult that is because we take music for granted because we are surrounded by it and we don't even realize it. So Orion was probably around 6, maybe 5, somewhere in there. And I knew, like, I did not watch TV that day. I obviously I didn't have any music on. I had to shut everything off. I had to be very careful of what I was accessing online, um, all of these things. And then I forget what it was. Orion needed something, and so I knew there was this corner, like, little convenience store down the street that, let's just say it was milk or something, but I knew that they didn't have overhead music because that's part of my job, and so I'm always walking to
Yeah.
places, like, what are they playing and all that, and so I knew that it didn't have music, so I thought I was safe, so I go and I check out. Now, mind you, this has been a really hard, like, 14 hours or 12 hours of trying to do this for this one single slide in this presentation. I get to checkout, I'm in line, there's a woman in front of me, and her phone goes off, and it's all the single ladies, And I'm
Ugh.
sitting there holding, and I just have my head down because I was just like, "Are you kidding? Like, I've come so close." So, she's walking out. I couldn't help myself. If she's watching, I'm so sorry. Well, we chatted, but I tapped her on the shoulder, and I was just like I explained to her who I was. I explained to her this whole thing, and she felt awful because she's like, "Oh my god, my phone, my ringtone." And I'm like, "Yeah, but really what I wanna know is why that song? Like, what is it about that song?" And she started getting choked up, which then obviously chokes me up. And she
Mm.
said that she had gone through a divorce, and she was having a really hard time with it, and she thought that she couldn't get excited about life again. And she said that her girlfriends just were there for her, and they finally one night went out, and they were all on the dance floor, and they were just having she's like, "I had not laughed like that in so long," and she said it was all the single ladies. So she said, "This is my ringtone for all of my girlfriends." And stuff, and I was like so that story and my mission were on that slide.
I love that. For the most part, you raised your son. I knew him as Eason, but his middle name is Orion, right? Which
Yep.
what a great name. So I'm interested in why he's named Eason Orion. So where does name come from and what was single motherhood like?
My maiden name was Cost, and so when I was pregnant with Easton Orion, I was like, "What goes with cost?" And so I was, one day, I was on the phone with a client, and his name is Jason. And, I mean, after we kinda do the sales things or whatever, I always, like, talk about life and what's going on. Well, anyway, I also doodle when I'm on the phone, and I had doodled the J into an E, and so when I got off the phone, I was looking down at Eason, and so I was like, "I love that's it." And Orion, I went in the 6th grade, I went on a school field trip to the planetarium, and everyone was captivated with the Big Dipper and all of this, but I was just like a magnet to, Orion and the Great Hunter and
Yeah.
seeing the 3 stars, which my birthday is in October, and so that's when Orion usually shows up. And so I just love that, and then I thought that no matter what, where in life he is, where in life I am, we could always I'm gonna get teary.
Uh,
We could always look up in the sky and see Orion's belt and
yeah.
have that connection.
And be
Yeah.
connected that
And
way.
so when we got to Montana, he just said, "Mom, I really wanna go by my middle name." And that's been it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great
So
name.
oh, thank you. Yeah, he loves it too,
Yeah.
and it's funny, he gets stopped all the time, and then my mom, worked for NASA, and she retired from NASA a number of years ago, and then when Orion yeah. So it's been pretty that's the reason why Interstellar is, like, my favorite movie, because it's
Oh,
science fiction, but it's really such a love story. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of my nerd side. But going back to, being a single mom, yeah,
yeah.
hardcore single mom.
Yeah, like, all on
Um,
your own.
oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk about strong like a girl. I mean, even when I was holding him, I was living in Los Angeles, and I was like, I can't do this." I can't do this." Like, I had friends. I mean, I didn't have Orion until I was, like, 35. So I had friends that were parents, and in that the mom and the dad and all of that, and how many challenges and all that they had, and I'm like, I just didn't know if I could do it, and so I realized the only way I could make it, I thought, is that I had to have support, emotional support, and so I moved back to Texas where my family were living because I knew I if I could lean on them or just have them there, then I could be a stronger mom for Orion, and Yeah, and then I picked amazing godparents, Dwayne Jones, I love you, Brandy, love you, which is part of our ACM family. Um, but then over the years, I mean, yeah, it's like going through it's like the minute I figured out how to be a mom of a baby, then he turned into a toddler. That was a whole different dynamic. And then by the time I figured out the toddler stuff, then it was like he became like this kindergartner and like, "Oh my gosh, I have to do homework again? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do Common Core math."
So, in the United States, things are a little bit different than they are in Canada when it comes to, maternity leave and stuff. I think you get about 6 weeks you would have gotten, right? So how did you I mean, I know that you moved back to Texas, but how did you survive?
It was a balancing act, and I have to give big kudos to my sister. My sister was just in love with Orion, and she was having her own kind of, um, pivot in life, and so I invited her to come live with us, and so we literally this dynamic duo for about a year or so. And stuff, but there's also it's so funny. I was in a sales position, I was at the previous company, and there's a picture that comes into my head where Orion is sitting on my desk in a little carrier, and I am on my computer, and I'm trying to make follow-up emails and get out quotes and all of this, and I literally have one hand on him, and I'm typing with the other hand. So, it was a lot of things like that.
Yeah, and I think you've been pretty honest that, you struggled, financially, right? And that you were on I think so for you guys, it was called the SNAP program, is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
The food stamps? Yeah, so
Yeah, it's very interesting here in the United States, especially for anyone who's watched the news at all. Yeah, there's a lot of perception out there is that those supports
Mhm,
are always being taken advantage of. Those supports are for the lazy people. Those supports
mhm.
are for the irrelevant. And I got so upset one day that I remember sharing it, I think it was on LinkedIn, just sharing my story, and I think on social media in general, is that if it wasn't for those supports, I mean, that's what got me through and got Orion through probably the first 6 months before I could get my bearings. And, I mean, you talk about and it's like pennies a day almost, but if you're strategic and how you're budgeting and having supports and all of this, I mean, that's what helps you get on your feet. And believe me, the day that I was able to submit saying I need to stop services because I'm okay, I kind of threw myself a little party because it was a celebration of also giving me the confidence that I did it. But in no way did I ever feel inadequate, lesser than, or any of that. It wasn't until later when, like, especially over the last few years and watching the news and seeing people of particular political stance, listening to them kind of define me, and they're fucking wrong.
Yep.
Excuse my frontage. Yeah.
No, no, we speak French here, you're good. Um So, in those seasons, like you just kind of briefly talked about it, what did it teach you about pride and dignity? And like, I believe those programs, there's the intention behind them is to help people, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a hand
Yeah.
up, not out necessarily,
Yes.
right? And the idea is they do become self-sustaining, if possible, and sometimes it's not possible for people. Um, and so, and how did your empathy kind of play into that? Like your empathy for yourself, maybe? In all of those situations of managing everything you were managing.
Wow, that's a really good question. Yeah, that's probably one thing I've struggled with is forget especially at that point in time, was empathy for myself, forgiveness for myself. Um, because I was a single mom, I carried a lot of guilt that I thought that I was raising Orion with a huge deficit. And with that feeling, like I felt like there are definitely moments where you're kind of, for all of us, I think we go through this, where you're, and I think there's a quote about it, but where you're sitting in a rowboat and you are just trying to row upstream and it's just exhausting and you are fighting every single day. And you get through different challenges, but then the minute that you've you're at the top of a hill, man, you find out that you're coming down the next one. And so I think with that journey going back to everybody's fighting a battle. Even my friends that are married and had children, I mean, listening to them, and it's just I have a great empathy for that, and especially for anyone who has teenagers. Ooh, that was a hard one. That was that was a hard bracket, um, because the person is becoming who they are, and sometimes, I mean, we were all teenagers, and we take stabs at our parents when we feel that they're inadequate, or we take just jabs at our parents because we're going through our own crap that we can't figure out. And there were moments where Orion said things where he hit on things where I felt defeated or I felt like I wasn't a strong mom. And then
Yeah.
right after, he would just be like, "I am so sorry." But it's just because he knows that that is something that I would say to him that I wish I could have done better. But I think all parents do that. All
Oh,
parents
for
will have
sure.
regrets. All parents will have, I wish, in fact, Dave and I have this conversation. Dave has 3 adult daughters, and he talks about things that he's like, "Man, I wish I knew then what I know now." Um, and I think that's just part of it.
I think
Yeah.
it's interesting that, Orion has, in that story, displayed, his own awareness and empathy, right? So maybe it's genetic to some degree, right? And while you were going through those things, and I also find it always so interesting that you're doing everything you possibly can, and you still feel like it's not enough, right? I think that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
common thread, right?
Yep.
But how did you protect him emotionally from all of the things you were like all the stresses and things you were managing? Like, I haven't been in a situation where I needed food stamps or something, but I'm just imagining the stresses and anxieties that come around that, and then, you gotta protect your child from
Yeah.
all of the
Yeah.
crap you're trying to manage,
Yeah.
right? So how did you do that?
There was some great advice that was given. Orion was in 2nd grade, and yeah, you're right. I had a mask on, I was, like, leaning into that mask, I thought I was doing like, keeping him safe was keeping him away from all of that,
Yeah,
and a counselor had called me because Orion was having some hard time, like, with reading and things like that, and so she was working with him. And she asked me one day, and I am so blessed by this conversation, but she said, "Has he ever see you fail?" I'm like, "Well, no, he doesn't see me fail. Like, I have to protect him."
yeah,
And I thought it was a trick question or something, and she's like, "You need to start being open with him because it's just the 2 of you." Because the other
yeah,
part of this, on the other side of this, is that if he sees that you never fail, you're creating his expectations for his own life. And man, that dropped me to my knees. And so then, literally, very slowly, I started telling him when he would ask me about, and he still does it to this day. He's like, "Hey, tell me about your day. What happened today?" And I, instead of going into like, "It was great, it was fun," or whatever, I was like, I told him about missed deadlines. I told him that, like, "Hey, I'm trying to focus on our budget because some things got a little messed up when the car broke down."
yeah.
I started having those conversations with him. I mean, I didn't have, like, exactly at 2nd grade, but
Oh,
as he
sure,
grew
but
up, then yes, I had those conversations. And then when I would ask him how his day or what was going on, he would talk it through, and it's like, "Okay, what's the next step?" And so that's really been the foundation of our relationship. And then back just the other day, he has his dream job, and I have to share this with you. When he was starting when he was 6, he made me go to Best Buy just to walk around because that kid just loved electronics. Like, that was me taking him to, like, the park. We would still go to the park, don't get me wrong, and he would just walk up like, he just loved it. So, anyway, even when I bought a TV, like, he asked me, "Can you take a picture of me and the sales guy?" I think his name was Jeff. And I'm like, "Why do you wanna take a picture with you and the sales guy?" He's like, "Because I'm gonna be his job, and I'm gonna have a blue shirt one day." Well, in January,
It's
Orion
great.
got a job at Best Buy, and
Really?
during his interview process, he shared that story.
Well, you got him the job, good for him.
Yeah, yeah, but even just the other day, he came over and he was like, "Hey," he said, "I have a situation at work, and I just wanna talk it through." And I'm like, "Sure." And I realized that, especially he's almost 20, that it's not necessarily he's asking me for advice. There's nothing for me to fix. Um, he's just needing a safe place to talk through what he's thinking. And then if he asks, like, "What is your opinion?" or "Here are the 2 options, kind of what have you experienced?" And that's the other thing. He asks a lot more of, like, "What have you experienced?" So
Mm,
that it's
smart.
not that I'm giving advice based on what I
Yeah.
just think. It's he's asking for advice of, like, "Have you ever been in this situation before?"
It's a beautiful thing, I have my stepdaughter Piper, who her and I are very close, and similar to how you described, like, we just have very honest conversations about stuff, and it's not that I've told her, like, all the dirty details of things, but she and I have a very, very, frank conversation about all kinds of stuff, right? And she's in her 20s now, and it's just such a gift to me, and, lately she ran into some trouble, and, she sent me a note and said, "Can I call you? I need some help," and "You know what? This is exactly where I wanted us to be, was like that I am that call, right? That you'll call me and ask for help, that you're not gonna hide that, you're not gonna whatever." And it's such a great and I mean, she's seen me in some very bad situations and stuff, right? And it made us stronger as a team, her and I certainly, for her to have seen the raw side and the times I did fail, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's that
Yeah.
vulnerability. There's so
Yeah.
much power in being vulnerable, but we put up walls to
Yeah.
like, "Nope, I'm good. I'm good." People will ask, like, what it was a couple of weeks ago, someone had asked me, about Orion and raising him and finding out that I was a single mom, and, said, "What would I do differently?" And it took me a second, but I think I would have let him fail a bit more. Because I
Yeah.
do think that guilt of being a single parent, going back to your feeling that you're raising that as a deficit, and part of that
Yeah.
you wanna fix things, maybe because the dad would have fixed them or whatever. But
Hmm.
that's so far from the truth, but I think I would have let him fail a bit more. Yeah.
What do you think people misunderstand about women in survival mode?
Oh, that we're damsels in distress?
Huh.
Because that's what yeah, I mean, that's what we've all kind of been taught. I mean, if you look at
Yeah.
advertisements from like the early like just going back to the early 1900s, I mean, you look at everything from talcum powder, Lysol. I mean, we'd go back to those old I mean, it's women, we were always in distress. I mean, we weren't even allowed to vote. I mean, we weren't even until 1974 here in the United States. We weren't allowed to even have a credit card. I mean, we couldn't
Or
take
get a
a loan,
mortgage or
we couldn't get a car, we couldn't do anything without our
Yep.
fathers or a spouse signing for it or validating, like, even to take a loan, I think there was actually, like, you had to, like, I guess, promise that you wouldn't get pregnant during the loan. I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
was similar here in
we
Canada.
yeah, and so it's man, that is fucking wrong.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we are not damsels in distress, and
That's
the other thing
great.
is that we don't when it comes to our dads or boyfriends or just men in our lives that love us, we don't need you to fix things. Sometimes we just need a soft place to have a conversation. And this is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. But a lot of men will step in and say, like, I'm in the process right now of buying a car. And, I mean, that's stressful, but I've bought all of my cars by myself. But Dave, I mean, he's just like, "Do you want me to be there or do you want" I mean, and I was like, "Yeah, if you wanna show up and, like, do the test drive with me and all that," and he's like, "Okay," because he was like, he loves the car that I'm looking at. But then that was it. He was just like, he sat in the lobby and would just lean in and like, "Good?" I'm like, "Yep, good." Yeah, yeah.
That's a great answer. So let's shift over to you got married on New Year's Eve during COVID. Yeah, I watched it. I watched online. I watched you guys get hitched. Um,
Aw.
you're 48, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
48 when you got married.
49. Yeah, I had to think about it for a
49.
second. I was like, "Oh, I was 49 when I got married." And it was the first time I got married. Like, yeah, that I literally was, like, on Amazon, like, looking at crazy cat lady starter kits because I thought, marriage is just not for me." And
Yeah,
then,
you could have just called me.
yeah.
I'd set you up with the kit. So, and then shortly after that joyous moment with Dave, you were diagnosed just a few months later, correct,
Oh,
with breast
85
cancer.
days later. 85 days later,
85 days later.
yeah, I sat in I sat in the treatment room. I thought I had gone through 3 different tests because they had found something, but first one came back negative, second one came back negative. I was, like, kind of, like, prancing in going, "This is gonna be negative
Yeah.
too," and yeah, and the doctor turned around and said, "We found breast cancer." And I just thought that was the cruelest thing because it was like, yeah, I finally found this place that I did not think was made for me. And, yeah, I was pretty pissed off for a while. Yeah, and then I
I
mean,
think
it was
that's
grief.
fair.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of breast cancer did you have?
I had stage 1, um, cancer, and my treatment, luckily, being married to a nurse practitioner was a lot of help, but I just had to go well, I just had to go through, but I went through radiation, and since then, obviously, I have been what they refer to as being under surveillance, so your first 5 years are pretty pivotal of reoccurrence, and, so, yeah, so for mine, um initially, because I hadn't gone through menopause yet, and this is a big piece of this, the type of medication you're given made me extremely sick, extremely
Ugh.
depressed. I would look in the mirror, I didn't know who I was. My husband didn't know who he had married. Orion was like, "Who? This is not my mom." Um, and it was one day Orion came home, and I was on the couch, a lot of pain, and he was trying to tell me about his day, kinda like, "How's your day?" And I stopped him in the middle of it, and I said, "You don't have to tell me about your day, you can go to your room and do whatever." And he dropped his head, and he walked away. And in that moment, I grabbed that medication, and please forgive me because 'cause you're not supposed to do this, but I grabbed that medication, I put it down the toilet. I called my oncologist and said, "We've gotta find something else."
Yeah.
Because I can't take this to increase my survival rate, and not be the person that who I am. And so they said the only option I had was to immediately have a full hysterectomy. So I had a full hysterectomy, and 30 minutes after my surgery, I had my first hot flash. And so, yeah, I've been dealing with those bad boys now for 5 years. Because March is my 5th year of diagnoses, and, August will be my official transition from being under surveillance to being a survivor.
Nice.
Yeah,
Not
just a
far
little
yet.
yeah. But one thing going back to music, one thing I think you would appreciate, when they rolled me into surgery, because I hum all the time. Like,
Yep.
it doesn't matter, I hum constantly, but when they were rolling me in, I was in surgery, looking around, had all this staff, and I looked around, and every single person in that room was female. The only male
Really?
was the surgeon. Everybody was female, and I just started to sing. I went, "Stop, collaborate, and listen. ICE is back." One of the nurses grabbed her phone, plugged it into the speaker. We all started to sing Ice Ice Baby. And then I was put under, and then I woke up, and I think I was still
Yeah.
kinda humming it, but yeah, the power of music.
Ah, the power of music. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Certainly, I'm happy that things are you're on the other side, and in the home stretch here before you get the badge of being a survivor. But how did cancer kind of change the way you see time, like right, and your life and
Oh, yeah. I mean, hearing cancer, I think it changes time because you realize really quickly that because you're having to think about it. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you're just constantly having to think about it. You're having to prepare, like, what if I'm not here? Okay, what is Orion? Like, what do I need to set in place for him? Dave, like, we've just been married for 85 days. I mean, like, it was like this hamster wheel.
yeah,
And as going through surgery, going through appointments, going like, okay, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be like just reminding myself, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. um you say it enough times, then you start to believe it. And then you start, okay, not just the people around you, but yourself. And then, like, after my last surgery or before my last surgery, like the whole um, hysterectomy thing, Dave and I was like, I need to get out of Austin. That's where we were living at the time. And so we went to Montana for a quick trip just because no one knew that I had cancer. No one knew any of that.
yeah,
And in that week up there, one, we ended up moving up there, but it allowed me to start thinking about things that I always said, "Oh, one day I wanna try this. One day I wanna get to that." And, when we got back, we moved to Montana, and during that time, I took this whole creative outlet just opened itself up because then it was like I really knew that I might not have time for that. That might not come for me one day. I have to take today.
yeah,
And I took pottery classes, I took macrame classes, I took metalsmithing classes. I mean, I didn't even know really what metalsmithing was like a year before, but it was just this curiosity and not wanting to wait for tomorrow. I wanted to do something for myself today. And it was like this therapy because before I met Dave, when I would get really challenged in life, I would gravitate to running and swimming and biking where I was in this, like, moving meditation. Like, I would call it that, "Oh, I'm training for a half Ironman," but honestly, what I was doing is trying to figure out my headspace,
yeah,
and moving was the only way I could do that. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I would cry or be on a bike and crying. It's a little different when you're swimming. But
yeah. It's
yeah, but
harder.
yeah, 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 you fill up those goggles really fast. Um, but no, creativity became this safe place for me and this not just a safe place for me, but even when I create, like, I started making things for my friends instead of giving them like our beloved Dwayne Jones. Instead
Yeah,
of giving like, we spend Christmas together every year, and instead of giving him the typical gifts that I would base all that kinda stuff, I reached out to his mom, and I asked her because I knew Dwayne had such this great relationship with his grandmother who had passed away. I asked for one of her aprons that was tucked away on a shelf, and I took that apron and I made it um, into something that now is an heirloom for him, and it's now something that's at his house, and it's not tucked
yeah,
away, that gets seen the light of day maybe once a year or something like that. And so for my creativity, man, that's just what makes me the happiest.
yeah. So that the cancer. ignited you on that path of kind of seeking out that creativity. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. I just had the opportunity to spend some time with someone who's on their last lap and has stopped treatment. And it's interesting to me. I hadn't considered it, but how much music has played a role in their life that I realized this time around with them. And they've spent quite a bit of time gifting people with different things and experiences that they could do with them, right? And kind of a living will sort of thing. And it really made me think about, my own legacy and what I would do with that money that I have and those kinds of things. And it's just a really interesting perspective to gain from somebody who really, I think, made the best use of the time that they were allotted. Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're getting to witness that,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah,
heart
he's
goes
brave.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes great people always say that it takes greater strength to hold on, and I definitely I come from that. I think it takes greater strength in letting go. I think it's greater strength going back to being on that boat and those oars. I think it takes greater strength to just let go of the oars and go with the flow. Yeah.
S Yeah, I would agree with that. So tell me how this all led you into investigative genealogy.
Oh, oh, that's another great one that I love. When I turned 40, I became fascinated with just my family's genealogy. And like so many of us, it's like you get an ancestry account and you just start like investigating. But I've been doing it since for almost 15 years, 14 years. And and in that process, and those skill sets that I gained, I started helping friends, and in fact, I even helped Dave because then when we first met, it's like, "Oh, well, I'm curious about the man that I'm dating or engaged to or married," and I was actually even able to help him and his family, find out some family mysteries and even what their actual surname is and how it changed and why it changed. And in doing that, I thought one day like, "Oh, I maybe should get certified in this." And when I was doing that due diligence, I came across, um, this new kind of world called investigative genetic genealogy, which is using DNA and genealogy together, which I had taken my DNA test and had Orion do it and Dave do it and all of that. And then I found out that having that skill set or that certification, you can help people like find their biological family, find more about those family stories that just disappear because when someone dies in our family, an entire library burns to the ground and you don't
Hmm.
get those pages back. And yeah, and so yeah, so I looked into who offers certification, and in the fall, I went back to school, and I went to Ramapo, College and have my certificate in investigative genetic genealogy, and the other part of what it does is it actually helps, which a lot of people, at least here in the United States, we're seeing more on the news about these cold cases being solved, like missing
Yeah.
people, all these things. In fact, even here with Nancy Guthrie, like right now,
Yeah.
that's what they're
Right.
using is investigative genetic genealogy. And so it does, it helps with cold cases. And to be honest, in the United States, we have like over 40,000 cold cases that are up on shelves. And really, the only way to solve them or to give them a chance to give a person their name back, to give families answers, um, is using a IgG. Yeah.
So what is investigative genealogy?
So it is. So it's being able to, um, like, let's just start off with DNA. So let's just say you have a cold case. Let's say that you've got a cold case of a rape victim, because that's very common. A rape victim, and there was DNA discovered on her body. And the DNA has been stored part of the cold case. Well, you could take that DNA, it can get processed through a lab. It can now be uploaded into not Ancestry, not commercial ones, but it could be uploaded into like GEDmatch, for example. You can upload it and then it gives out like who is this person related to. And so then you start investigating, like, typically for most cases, there's a little bit longer of a process, but just to be simple, um, on average, it's like 3rd, 4th cousins. And so then you start building out those family trees, and you start
Right.
looking for people that kind of intersect. And so once you find cousins and stuff that share like a great, great, great grandparent, then once you find them, then you start building out the family tree going in descent order. Because then you start identifying, okay, because you're looking for this one male. And so then you get down to this level where you now have all of, let's just say, these great great grandchildren and they had children. Well, you pull away all the daughters because that's obviously irrelevant. Then you start looking at all the sons that are left.
Yeah.
Not the girls are irrelevant, but in this
Yeah.
case, yeah. And then you're looking at the males, and then you look at the ones that are too old, too young, and whatever those cases are. Then you start comparing with um kind of more of the genetics background of the DNA that you have, and then you've identified, let's just say you identify this family who has 2 sons, and then you investigate those sons. Where did they live? What did they do? And then in a lot of cases with investigators, then once you have 2 that need to be under investigation or you get it down to the 1, then it becomes a lead. That's all it is. And then you take that
Mm.
lead, you give it back to the investigators, and then it's on them to investigate. And so then, like, let's just say that I say that John Stevens is someone of interest. And so
Huh.
the one thing that they do is they may follow John, what did I give him? Steve Smith or whatever. They follow him. He's at a coffee shop drinking a cup of coffee. He throws that coffee cup in a waste can here in the United States. That's free reign. So then they get that coffee cup, they run, it's called touch DNA. They run that, they compare it to the DNA that we have of the victim and find out if it's a match or not. And then that's if you go
Wow.
into there's a great organization called the Doe Project. They actually even started a series on Hulu. Um,
Yeah.
but if you look them up, you can see a lot of their cases that they've solved and how they've solved them. So yeah, but
Wow.
honestly, it is probably the number one way to really solve the majority of cold cases. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So
Mhm.
how long is the education, the certification, pardon me?
Oh, it was a semester long. There's another organization that's 1 year.
Can you do it
I
online?
Yeah, did it all online. I had my classes 2 days a week. Live class, I
Mm.
had classmates, we worked on projects together, people were
Yeah.
from all over the country, all like we had attorneys, we had lab technicians, we had an interior designer, we had someone who works in healthcare. I mean, it's just this collage of characters that all have the same passion of making a difference in this world and making a difference in a way that most people aren't even aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So you have a tattoo, you say that tells your story. Show us the phoenix and explain it to us. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I got her when I was 46, my first tattoo. Um, and I wanted something actually, Orion found the foundation of the tattoo at, a festival and stuff. It was a little,
Mm.
image. And really, I worked with a tattoo artist because I kind of always thought like I needed to have something, but this was really, I thought, my story. So the tattoo, the tail is of a phoenix, or actually, I should say the whole thing. As you can see here, it's patchwork. It's different colors. It's like the patchwork of life. It's our good stories. It's
Yeah.
our bad stories. It's our heartbreaks that are all woven together. And the
Mhm.
tail is of a phoenix. So I'm gonna fall, but but I'm also gonna rise. And in the very center, there is an elephant trunk. And so the elephant trunk is even when I lose, I don't lose the lesson. and at the end of the
Mm,
day, I can still fly. And
yeah.
it took me until I was 46, I thought, to earn her. So, yeah.
Ah, lovely, lovely. What do you hope Orion understands about your journey one day?
Oh, there's still parts of my journey that I haven't shared with him, but I know one day I will because I think he needs to know. That's
Yeah,
one thing I've definitely learned in this process of genealogy and family history. Like, we carry generational trauma, and a lot of times we have no idea where that trauma comes from. We just know that we inherited it.
yeah,
And there's a lot of people that, like even Dave, my husband, when I started sharing things with him, and he had, even from just paperwork and documents, he had a different understanding of his father. You see
mm,
it constantly where someone passes away, and then you go down this route of genealogy, and then you start to find out, like, wow, like my grandfather who raised my dad in a really, really tough way, that I inherited some of that trauma. This is where it stemmed from. And I think there's a lot of closure that happens when those
mm,
discoveries are found. And for me, there are things that I know one day, I sit there and talk about one day, that I will, because Orion's getting to that age where we're gonna be
yeah,
able to sit and have those conversations, because I don't want him to discover it any other way. I want him to hear things from me.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and I definitely I know Orion, I know it will completely bring us closer together. Yeah, because vulnerability with both of us has always brought us closer together.
When you look at all the chapters of your life, the quiet child, the single mother, the healthcare leader, the athlete, the artist, the patient, about to become a survivor, who
Mm,
are you now?
yeah. Oh my gosh. Um, Remember in the closing, if you've ever seen The Breakfast Club, when he's
Yeah,
reading the letter and he's talking
yeah,
about all of these different characters? We're not one of them, we're all of them. Like,
we are
I'm
all of them.
I'm an artist, I'm a survivor, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm all of these things.
Yeah,
I am a collection of the books I've read, the songs I've heard, the stories. I'm a collection of all of this. Um And I love that. Like, I
yeah,
used to think that I had to work upstream to be a title or to be a definition of something specific, and that's that's not it. I'm a collection of all of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Acceptance. What I know now is that your warmth wasn't accidental, it was definitely forged. You lived the chapters most people never see, raising your son Orion on your own, navigating seasons of scarcity, walking through breast cancer, rebuilding, rising, choosing again. And I think what makes it the most moving isn't just the phoenix on your arm, but it is the patchwork, the willingness you have to stitch the hard stories and the good ones to go together and call it your life, right? You've
Mhm.
reminded us that strength isn't loud, it isn't perfect, and it certainly isn't polished, that it's getting up, it's learning the lesson, and it's choosing to fly even when you've fallen before. So thank you very, very much for your honesty. And if you're game, I'd love you to do our rapid fire ending uh 10 questions, modified from James Lipton of the Actors Studio. If you're open to
Yeah,
them. I hope they're
totally game.
fun.
I'm
Yeah.
always
Okay.
game. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite word?
Oh, I would just say right, even in having this conversation, my favorite peace.
Peace. What
Peace.
is your least favorite word?
Uh, Least favorite word. It's funny because I think of Dwayne's least favorite word, and it's moist. But
Only 2 other people have said moist in this
yeah,
show.
yeah. So maybe
What's wrong
we
with
should
you?
just remove that from the dictionary or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. It's the I know because he says it so much over the years. In fact, one Christmas I got him all kinds of things that had the word moist on them.
Uh, so what's your least favorite word? Are you gonna go with
Slut.
moist?
Sludge.
Sludge. Yeah. What turns you on?
Oh, vulnerability.
What turns you off?
Cruelty.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise that I love. Oh, laughter. Laughter.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Ooh. Um, Smacking. I've ended a few dates because they smacked and yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Yeah. Wins
Oh,
almost
yeah.
every time on that one, yeah.
There's like because there's so many ways to use it because other cuss words are so linear. But fuck,
Yeah.
it could be exciting, it could be loving, it could be all these things. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck, yeah.
Yeah. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, um, I kinda have it in my head that maybe one day I can be a full-time or retired volunteer of doing IGG work, being an
Yeah.
investigative genealogist, but I would also want it to be where I also got in that would also get to teach a college history class that I create blending history and IGG together.
Ooh, that sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
Oh, anything that is, what would you call this? Like a manufacturing plant maybe? Anything where I'm just like, I don't know, putting stamps on something, and I'm, like,
Yeah,
in
like
my little
piecework.
cubicle. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a conveyor belt. Yeah. Even though there's an episode of I Love Lucy where it's chocolate,
Yeah.
that one I would consider.
Yeah, her and her best friend.
Yeah.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
Oof, oof. Um, I think I would want or I would need, um, for God to say, "I'm sorry. Don't worry, he's not here."
Oh,
And then I would just need a hug
yeah,
until I let go,
yeah.
and then for him to tell me what time is my welcome home party.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
nice answer, yeah. What does strong like a girl mean about you?
Always being curious and always I mean, empathy, obviously, but being curious about whether or not it's a class or being curious about a person. Um, I think that's what gives it strength. It's not I mean, I'm an introvert, honestly, at heart. And
Yeah, me
talking
too.
about the weather and things like that, no, it's the vulnerability of people, their story, just like what you're doing. There's so much power in this,
Yeah,
um,
it's
that I
great.
think that's what makes us strong, and we're not damsels in distress. Fuck that.
Yeah, yeah, fuck that.
That
We're not damsels in distress. Yeah, I always
yeah.
like to say we're not tiny men. We're just, we
No.
can do it differently and on our own for
Yep.
sure. Thank you very, very much, Debbie, for your honesty and for participating and coming on the show. And it's been so nice to see you. Now I want to come to Nashville and yeah, and see you
Yes,
for sure. Yeah,
please. I'm gonna
love
bug the
that.
crap out of you. I'm like, "Come on."
You did a great job today. Thanks very much for everything. Find more information about today's episode and our guest in the show notes or at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca. You can also leave a voice note at stronglikeagirlpodcast.ca to share your story, your reaction to our conversation, or to tell us about a strong girl you think we should interview. Be sure to subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if this episode resonated with you, please leave us a review and share it with a friend. We always want to help more women and more stories be heard. Thank you very much for listening. Chin up, chest out, stay wild. Your strength has a story, and around here we call that strong like a girl.